What are they doing with Final Fantasy XIV? Hey, thanks for tuning into my video. My name is Rin, I'm a tank main. I've been playing the game since about Shadowbringers. I've done my fair share of raiding, including 4 ultimates. And this is my first video, so strap in because I think it's going to be a long one. For a while now, I feel like I've been watching the game just like shoot itself in the foot. So I wanted to just bring up like the major parts of the game that I personally have a gripe with. I don't hate the game. I'm really just making this video in hopes that it'll gain some sort of traction and just overall have a positive effect on the game. The topics I'm going to be mainly talking about are the new player experience, quality assurance, balance philosophy, the main story quest, and just like miscellaneous like systems and features. Retaining new players is obviously super important, and so are first impressions. How often have you heard the term, oh, it gets better after X amount of hours, or oh, it gets better in X expansion? And while these statements, I mean, they can be true, they don't really help the game's case. I actually quit the game in A Realm Reborn, and I just happened to come back to it randomly like a year or so later, and that's when I was finally able to push into Heavensward, and that was when I really got into the game. But a lot of people, they don't come back. Your first few hours of the game are going to be filled with non-voiced cutscenes, tutorials, and just very non-engaging content. The game, it kind of feels more like a visual novel at the start than it even does an MMO. A big part of Final Fantasy XIV is the community, but for hours and hours and hours you just feel like you're playing a single player game, and they're not utilizing that strength that the game has. Not just that, but a lot of features are locked behind blue quests for like no reason. Like every single housing district you need to complete a blue quest. Glamour, even dyeing your gear, you need to complete a blue quest to even access any of those features. Why not just give players access to those features from the start? Why do you need a tutorial for every single system in the game? Yes, they have cut down on like how long the A Realm Reborn MSQ is, but it's not enough, and it's really not the only change the new players need to stick around. If you recommend a friend to the game, they basically need to complete 6 entire JRPGs to even play the current content with you, and that's just not okay at all. The whole initial premise of Dawntrail when it was revealed was that it's a new adventure and we're closing the story with Endwalker and it's a new story, and if that's the case, why not let new players start in Dawntrail? Give new players some sort of, special intro to teach them the basic fundamentals of the game, but after that, just throw them into the game. New Game Plus is a function in the game that lets you replay MSQ, but no one really uses this system because we've already gone through the MSQ once already. But for a new player, they can use it to play the MSQ at their own pace while also still being able to play with their friends within the current content. A few years ago, WoW did a complete overhaul for their new player experience. A starter zone that quickly teaches you the fundamentals of the game, and then a fast track leveling experience with any expansion you want to play. While not perfect, it was definitely a huge improvement over what they had previously. Like I said before, the community in FF is a great strength for the game, but when you're in hours and hours of cutscenes, there is no community. I don't know what the QA was like during Shadowbringers because I was still relatively new to the game, and I definitely can't speak about Stormblood or earlier, but in Endwalker there were definitely some things that I noticed. I feel like it started around the time when I had heard that part of the dev team from 14 was actually taken away to work on 16 instead, and I think ever since then there's just obviously been a lack of testing when it comes to certain jobs and fights.
Fucking way we do it. No fucking way we do this. No way. This is fucking stupid. This is fucking
When Pictomancer came out, it was very strong. And after the raid tier, players asked for a nerf. And Square literally responded with, if they nerfed the job, it wouldn't be as fun. So when FRU came out, people realized not only was Picto strong, but it was broken. Picto would become a required role for Party Finder, while other roles were completely locked out of FRU. Not only did it just trivialize DPS checks, but you could essentially skip the final Hand of Pain mechanic, a mechanic that requires both bosses to be at similar HP. In other ultimates, such as Living Liquid in T and Double Dragons of DSR, this mechanic is extremely punishing, often followed by a wipe if not executed properly. But in FRU, thanks to Picto, this mechanic basically doesn't exist, since the bosses were already at 1 HP by that time. Finally, another 4 months later, 7.2 hits and Picto received a harsh nerf. Except, it wasn't just a nerf, it broke the job again, but in the complete opposite direction. Painting your hammer during DPS uptime would actually be a DPS loss, which essentially broke the design of the job. This negligence from the devs proceeded until patch 7.3, 13 months after the initial release of Dawntrail and Pictomancer, when it was finally adjusted properly, but still in a strong state. There is no good reason why this job was essentially broken for over a year. Meanwhile, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you had Machinist, a job that was basically considered by players to be the weakest job in the game. It saw little to no play and was even often locked out of being able to join groups for the ultimate. Surely Square Enix would see this and give the job some love for 7.2, right?
Stop it! Play your fucking game! How are you this fucking stupid and useless at your fucking jobs? Fucking fire all of them! Holy shit.
Square has mentioned before that they actually do look at FF logs in tandem with their own statistics. And you know, I've really got to wonder, what number indicated to them that Machinist needed a nerf? I really have no idea. As my own personal gripe as a tank main, I've got to mention Dark Knight TBN. TBN is a 15-second cooldown, which would normally incentivize more frequent use of it compared to the other tank mids that are 25 seconds. But in Dawntrail, Dark Knight actually lost MP regen, so you don't actually use TBN more frequently than you would a 25-second mit from the other tanks. It's a complete contradictory design flaw.
Like, what would you rather have in a vast majority of situations? Heart of Corundum or TBN? Heart of Corundum. What would you rather have? Bloodwetting or TBN? Bloodwetting. What would you rather have? Holy Sheltron or TBN? Holy Sheltron. Dude, nah, TBN's garbage.
The job issues that I've mentioned so far, I haven't even scratched the surface. I haven't even mentioned Monk being broken at Dawntrail release, Samurai's Kaiten being removed for no reason, level 100 Summoner not actually playing any differently than level 90, and Fizz-range players as a whole feeling like their role is useless.
I've been waiting for this job to be fun for the past 3 expansions, okay? 3 expansions, not 3 years, 3 expansions, alright? And it goes downhill more and more. The one time I get invited to media tour, I came out and they changed everything that I like about my job.
How am I supposed to be optimistic about the supposed big 8.0 job reworks when they're unable to even put the jobs in a good state the way they are right now? How is anyone? And why aren't they listening to player feedback about these topics? I understand they have this hesitation to do something like release a beta test server since they highly value spoilers and not wanting them to get out, but I don't see the harm of implementing something like that since the game is clearly in need of more testing on a larger scale than what they're doing currently. I mean, within just a day or two of patch 7.3, a major bug was found with the Extreme where you can literally skip an entire mechanic that probably could have been completely avoided had there been a public beta test before the patch went live. The lackluster implementation of Occult Crescent also probably could have been either partially or completely avoided if they had a proper channel for player feedback.
Aggro.
Oh, snipe.
You got him. Mitigate.
No, come on.
We're just dead. We're just fucking dead.
Oh, that is so fucking stupid, man!
Perfect. I need to. I got.
Fuck
I
off,
think
dude! How was this not tested,
Done,
man?
done, done.
How was this not tested?
The balance philosophy, I guess you could call it, of 14 is that the top damage dealers are the selfish DPS, followed by the melees because melee uptime hard, followed by the casters because caster uptime hard, but not as hard as melee uptime, and followed up by the fizz range because ranged uptime easy, I guess. Oh, but Picto is exactly with the melees because it doesn't have a res, I guess. All these different rules for damage disparity between the roles, it just makes me feel like it makes the game worse, and it probably makes it harder to balance as well. My take is that aside from the selfish DPS, which should be on top, I think everything else should just do the same amount of damage. Melee uptime isn't really a thing since most fights allow full or nearly full uptime, and a missed melee GCD or two doesn't really warrant damage disparity between them and the ranged. This would actually allow more freedom for the DPS jobs and for players to play whatever they want. You could run 2 ranged, 2 casters, 2 melee, and it would still all be viable in terms of total raid DPS. And regarding the whole topic of casters having reses, I think most raiders do like having access to that extra res for prog, so I think there are 2 solutions available. One, just give a res to all the casters and put it on a long cooldown. It would really end up only being used to get up a healer if they're both dead. Option 2 would just be make Phoenix Downs usable in all combat. Recently they've been made available for 4-man combat, and why not just open that up to 8-man combat as well? They have a 6-minute cooldown and they actually share a cooldown with raid pots, so I actually don't think it would be that strong. Right now Red Mage can literally instacast res the whole party back to life, and not even a healer can do that, and I just think that's way too strong for a DPS job. Oh boy, here we go. Probably the most talked about topic this expansion. The main story is definitely what gets most people into the game, and it's content that all players can enjoy regardless if you're casual, midcore, or hardcore. It's what got me into the game despite me actually quitting during it. If I were to ask you what you thought was the most impactful moment of Heavensward, what would you say? I think most would answer with Hoshifon's death. It had a huge impact on the community when it first came out, and years later it still has impact on the new storygoers. For an RPG, it's a huge risk to kill off a major character, but doing so is what set 14's story apart from other more predictable JRPGs. Now let's fast forward 6 years to Endwalker. In the MSQ for Ultimate Duel, Meteon makes Thancred disappear, presumably killing him. I actually think this would have closed his character arc nicely following the events of Shadowbringers and his story with Reen. But instead, Medion makes more members of your party disappear, one by one. And you already know what's going to happen next. And with the power of friendship and no real plot device, your friends are brought back to life. Little did I know at that time that this was just the first step on a slippery slope that would lead to Dawntrail. I don't actually want to spend too much time talking about Dawntrail MSQ or Wuklamau since it's already a topic that's been just beaten to death. So instead, I just want to list a quick few moments of the Dawntrail story that just really didn't make sense to me. In 7.0, Bukul Jaja releases Valley Garmanda for literally no explainable reason other than to just be an antagonist. It doesn't really make sense as to why he would do that considering he was in the running to become Dawn Servant. Later, when we discover some dark truth about how the two-headed Mamuljas are born and the issues that the race is going through, we sort of just go in there and fix them instantly. The race was going through issues for apparently years, and after just clicking my mouse a few times, all the issues were solved. It was just so weird, man. But you know what? It's alright. 7.1 will be better. Right? Well, actually, in 7.1, an entire section of the MSQ was dedicated to saving cows from a dinosaur. No, I am not kidding.
There! That one there! Not so fast!
How does this further the narrative of the world? What information that we need is behind this? Nothing. It's literally just complete dialogue bloat and filler content. I want to go through a list of some existing things in the game that I just feel are very dated and need attention. Why does the glamour dresser exist? Why is it so hard to increase the capacity of it? Why even have a capacity? Are the servers gonna run out of space if I have too many pairs of pants? In WoW, any equipment you've had in your inventory is immediately saved, letting you apply its appearance to any other piece of equipment. Why are the devs so adamant about using this glamour dresser system when it obviously is inferior to other existing systems in other games? Why are items bought in the store not account wide? If I'm gonna spend $18 or $22 on an outfit, it should be usable on all my characters, especially on all races. There is no reason why an item you purchase with your real money should be unusable on certain races, specifically Viera in this situation. And why did it take 6 years to just let Viera ears clip through the hats? Why, when an expansion drops, is there not a housing district for that expansion? I mean, housing is a whole other can of worms that I don't really want to get into, but a house on the moon or in Solution 9 I think would be pretty damn sick. Why has the friends list been using dial-up internet for like 12 years? And how come there's like no option for me to turn on login notifications or something for my friends? Why is Square okay with letting best in slot gear go sometimes completely useless? When there isn't something like an ultimate following up the Savage tier, you're basically just getting the BIS to clear Savage again, but just a few seconds faster next time. There needs to be some sort of content for when an ultimate isn't present. It could be an Unreal ultimate or just something completely new. Yes, Quantum is coming soon, but to my knowledge that'll just be using the Deep Dungeon Ether Pool gear and not actually item level gear, so that doesn't really address the situation. A big selling point about 14 is that you can play all the jobs on one character, and while you can, you actually can't? At least not really. Getting gear from raids and tomes, unless you do split clears, it's going to take you at least 2 months to fully gear one job, and that's if you clear the raids in a timely fashion. With best in slot gear often being required by groups for Ultimate, you essentially need to commit to a single job or two at most, like 4 months beforehand. It's basically just artificially making the patch last longer. Yes, they have reduced the amount of books some raid pieces cost, but considering weapon is still 8, it really hasn't reduced the total amount of time required. And with 2 jobs coming out every expansion, why is the tome cap still 450? I think it's been 450 for like the whole game. Materia is a very boring and just completely unimpactful system. No one's gonna feel any different after putting on a piece of equipment that gives them plus 12 crit, especially when the game doesn't even tell you what plus 12 crit even does without using mods. The system is definitely in need of an update so it actually will have impact on your gameplay. What if, and hear me out here, but what if your weapon had class specific materia slots that enhance the actions of certain skills, and players would have to choose between different materia for different effects? For an example I've come up with, Dark Knight players could choose between either enhanced TBN, which could increase the potency of your next edge or flood from the proc from popping TBN. This would incentivize you to actually use TBN more often instead of just sending the edge on its own. Or instead, they could opt for enhanced salted earth, increasing your damage and mits while standing inside of it. Basically ley lines, but for Dark Knight. This is really just a dumbed down version of talent trees in WoW, and it would require balancing along with the classes, but I think it could breathe a lot of new life into the game. This would even make ultimate weapons more than just cosmetic, considering they have an extra materia slot, and it would actually be used for something more impactful than just another plus 12 crit. Yes, if this system was implemented, it would just be down to whatever is the strongest for most players, but the illusion of choice is really better than no choice. I know I probably sounded just incredibly bitter throughout this whole video, but I mean, at the end of the day, I just want the game to be good. By paying for a game monthly, you have the right to expect a certain level of quality and just due diligence from the developers. But right now, I feel like there's this lack of sense of urgency from them. The devs are often praised for their mentality of just go play other games and come back later. But what if we do? And what if a lot of those players don't end up coming back? Yoshi P will often hit us with the please look forward to it. But what happens when a lot of us end up not? I actually met my best friend through 14 and we ended up meeting up and actually going to Japan together, and it was one of the greatest moments of my life. So it really sucks to see the game on a decline the way that it is. Thank you so much for watching. If you agreed with my takes or if you thought they were shit, please leave a comment and I will respond and we can have a discussion. Peace out.